I think that optimism does matter. I think being able to look at things from a positive perspective does matter. It doesn't mean that they're good things, but how you process things is, I think, the single biggest thing for a human and for an entrepreneur to be quite um, um, straightforward. That is, to me, where resilience comes from. Resilience is the ultimate characteristic you need to be a good husband, good father, good entrepreneur.
Welcome to A Founder's Life. I'm your host, Leo Kostetner. On this show, we dive into the real stories behind the highs and lows of entrepreneurship and how we pursue a more balanced and meaningful life along the way. This podcast is sponsored by Thankz, helping founders like us scale with reliable remote talent. Email founders@thankz.com, that's THANKZ.com, with the subject line A Founder's Life, and you'll receive $1,000 off your first month. Now, I'm excited today to be joined by Jim Donnelly. Jim, thank you for joining. Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Leo, thank you for having me. I'm excited to do this podcast. I'm Jim Donnelly. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Humanaut Health. I'm also a husband, a father of 2 teenagers, and a serial entrepreneur. So excited to talk with you today.
Excellent. You're on the serial entrepreneur. So talk to us about the journey that brought you where you are today, and then talk to us a little more about what your current business is doing and how you're helping your clients.
Yeah, I think entrepreneurs, there's a seed or a fire in them early, and then it's sort of like, do they go down the path or do they sort of fight that and never go down the path? I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. My dad was a retired Army officer that decided he wanted to be an entrepreneur. He opened many businesses. He wasn't a particularly good entrepreneur, actually. He had multiple bankruptcies, and as a kid in a household with multiple bankruptcies, you sort of see the highs and lows of entrepreneurship. And the thing that I always admired in my dad is he, number one, we're in the United States, so I think failure and success can be equally celebrated. Failure's kind of the stepping stone to your next success. And so my dad actually taught me less about, he modeled a good life for me, but when it came to life lessons, he talked about things like, there's no, debtor's prison in the United States, Jim. As long as you work hard, do what you say you're going to do, use your money the same as other investors' money. People are very understanding of success and failure, so they'll give you another chance. And so I grew up in that environment. I did start my first business when I was 21 in grad school as a business school project, won a bunch of awards, but I had a military commitment. I had to go in the Army. I went and did the Ranger School thing and jumped out of airplanes. And the best part of that experience was I met my wife, who had just come from West Point. And although we didn't date that at that time, we met, and 10 years later, we became more of a couple. But in that interim 10-year period, I really wanted to go out and learn things to make myself a better potential entrepreneur. So I worked in corporate America. My thesis was I would take the highest, most profile, most challenging jobs. I worked at companies like Coca-Cola, Citibank, AT&T. Each job had an agenda. I wanted to learn international. I wanted to learn retail. I wanted to learn technology, consumer packaged goods. And my approach was, the day I would get promoted, I'd go get a headhunter to get me my next job so I could get promoted twice as fast, and I could get through my corporate experience twice as fast so that I could get back to being an entrepreneur. And then in 2001, it was just kind of enough is enough. I was at a friend's wedding. I got paired in a golf cart with another entrepreneur. He said, "Hey, what are you doing, Jim?" And I said, "Well, I work at Citibank." And he said, "Well, what did you do before that?" And I said, "Well, I worked at Coca-Cola." And then he said, "Well, then why the hell are you in my cart? Like, I thought this was the entrepreneur cart." And I said, "Well, you got a good point. I did have a successful business once, but it's been a while." I quit my job that week. It was the kind of the last thing I needed to get me over the hump. I had a good buddy at Citibank. We both quit. We went and did I Go, You Go. I Go, You Go 4 years later won a Webby Award as the top travel site in the world. And we sold that to Travelocity, and that provided me the resources to be an entrepreneur for the last 25 years. And then Humanaut, I say, is the end of that 25 year journey. I couldn't have started at Humanaut. Humanaut is a very complex business in the health optimization space. So prior to Humanaut, I've owned high-end health clubs. I did Restore Hyper Wellness. Restore Hyper Wellness is sort of like the entry level wellness type things like cold and heat and pressure and hyperbaric oxygen. But it, that was a 8-year journey of learning how to scale a medical business, corporate practice of medicine, understanding retail better. And then you wake up one day and your why kind of changes. My dad died of cancer, and I knew that Restore didn't go far enough to help someone like that I loved. And then I got run over by a drunk driver. 65 miles through a red light. I'm going 65 through a green light. That's never good for a human body. And thank goodness I found a variety of different things to help me, including stem cells. And so between my father dying and having just gotten a huge private equity investment in Restore, General Atlantic, which is top of the food chain, invested $150 million, $125-ish million into Restore. And so that kind of brings you to an inflection point. And between that and wanting to go create something new, your dad dying of cancer, getting run over by somebody, you're saying, okay, that's probably a sign from the universe that it's time to go do the next thing. And the last 2 years has been all about building Humanaut into a world-class business. And we'll scale it. We'll open 100 locations over the next 3-4 years. We've got a sophisticated telehealth component, and we're launching an e-commerce store for a variety of things that we sell in the next couple of weeks as well. So it'll be this really interesting omni-channel approach to health optimization. We have a world-class team on the corporate side. We have a world-class team on the medical side. And we get quite a lot of attention because of the track record of the founding team. And so it's kind of interesting to get as much attention as we get, given we're new. We've already won awards for the most innovative health and wellness concept, from things like Athletech News. And so we're very flattered and humbled by that and looking forward to the journey.
Wow. Sounds like some journey. So how long has that business actually been around for now?
Humanaut's been around for going on 2 years. Our first retail clinic's been around for about 9-10 months, and we've already started opening our next clinic. So we're opened our second one in Palm Beach, Florida. We're, far down the path for our third location, our fourth location, and sort of 5 through 15 in various parts of the country. So it's happening.
Nice. And have you raised much money so far for that one?
Yeah, we raised about $17 million so far for Humanaut. We'll raise a little bit more money for some strategic things that we want to do, but raising money for a great idea in the health optimization space with a good track record isn't really our biggest challenge. There was a time in my entrepreneurial career where you had to approach it very differently. It was all angel money. It was people who knew you. And over the years, having had a really good track record of success, it's become a lot easier. Humanaut, I basically raised money with the rest of the co-founders on a napkin at first. The very first investment commitments came in. Then, of course, we put together a pretty sophisticated presentation. People really love the vision. They know that this category, I'd say health optimization, preventative health and wellness, you can even say the word longevity. It's probably the hottest category in the world outside of AI. And so there's just a lot of interest, and people are making bets, and they're trying to put bets on the best entrepreneurs. There are going to be a lot of winners. There's going to be a lot of losers. And, we obviously want to be on the right side of that.
Sounds like hopefully you will be. It's got some exciting products.
As an entrepreneur, I will say this, like over time, you have to really think about your currency. There was a time where my currency was definitely money and having a big exit. And, I think I always sort of had passion around my businesses and a good compass around the important things. If you build a good business, the money will always follow. But, when you are at my age, when you do have a family and loved ones and teenagers, my currency definitely starts with purpose, societal impact. I'm never going to do anything that's going to sacrifice my relationship with my kids and my wife. I actually involve them quite a bit. They're pretty passionate about what we do as well. And, there's just lots that goes into finding the right balance and finding the right joy in every part of that.
Well, That leads very nicely into talk a little bit about family and what that means to you.
I say there are certain things in life, and there aren't many of them that are irreplaceable, and family is certainly what I put in that bucket. My daughter turned 16 today, and I had a very important meeting in New York City. We were meeting with some strategic partners. It's a lot of money. It's very good for Humanaut, and they wanted to meet tomorrow. And in order to make those meetings, I was going to have to get on a plane, fly to New York. And I talked to my daughter and I looked her in the eyes and said, Stella, I want you to understand this is a very important meeting. And she said, Dad, listen, you've been there for me my entire life. Go do your meeting. So anyway, I'm a kind of an emotional guy. I start to kind of tear up and get emotional. And she said, Dad, come on. It's okay. It's okay. And I said, Stella, I'm going to change that meeting. I am not going to miss your 16th birthday. And so I changed the meeting. And to be quite frank, it wasn't nearly as hard to change the meeting as you kind of sometimes kind of make yourself feel like, oh my gosh, these are important people. They're not going to want to change. The second you tell them, hey guys, can we move the meeting to next week? My 16-year-old girl's having her birthday. Everybody, they kind of look at you like, you're a jerk if you don't cancel the meeting and change it. You got to be willing to make that statement. You got to do it. And so I will be at my daughter's birthday tonight and we're going to go celebrate as a family. And that was the right choice. And I'm almost like mad at myself for even thinking that it would have been okay to miss her 16th birthday. It's stupid.
I love that. And I think, people are fine when you're, number one, you're honest, if they can tell you're talking
Yeah.
from the heart. And
Yeah.
the other thing that's changed, I think, in our generation, probably versus our parents' generation, is people understand family are important. I
Yeah.
think probably a lot
Yeah.
more than they did before. Like, it's okay that, you know what, family coming before business, that's a good thing. In fact, they probably respect you more for that.
Yeah. I would also say it's actually part of picking partners. The partners that you're going to work with, you're going to spend a lot of time with, you're going to do some big meaningful things. And actually these things in life are a good filter for, are these people that understand that this is a marathon, not a sprint, that if we're going to do big things together, we got to recognize there's more to life than working every single minute. And so it was really, for me, validation that I'm actually working with great partners. And, I say all the time, there's a time and a place. There's a time that you got to be the best dad. There's a time you got to be the best husband. There's a time you got to be the best friend, the best CEO. You cannot be the best of all of that simultaneously. It's just impossible. But what you can do is recognize the moments when you have to be the best at the thing in that particular context. And as long as you have a good sort of ability to filter when is appropriate, and, I think you can dial up each of those. And so there are times when I would say unambiguously, I'm one of the best fathers you're ever going to meet. There are times when I'm one of some of the best husband you're going to meet. There are times when I certainly go super deep on the CEO side. Now, if you ask my wife, she might say the best husband. I'm not sure I'd go that far, but you know what I mean. Like, I really do pick the moments where you lean in, and everyone understands that. My kids are very talented kids. My son's about to go off to college. He's looking at places like Stanford and Princeton, and he earned that. Like he is for the last 4 years. And I think that is a byproduct of, number one, he's a talented, beautiful human being. But number two, I think it comes from being in a household where these things are rewarded, achievement is celebrated. And so I'm super proud of that. But I've tried to tell him, like, also have some perspective. If you don't get into any of those fancy schools and you end up going to a other perfectly suitable school, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. Life will be fine if you put in the work, if you surround yourself with good people, if you pick things that are meaningful in terms of what you're doing for work and you're passionate, you'll be fine, dude.
Yeah, I think I used to say that, the relationship I have with my kids, I'm lucky to have a fantastic relationship with my kids. And then I came to the realization probably a year ago or something, luck's got nothing to do with it. It's because I've been very present and,
Yeah.
I put my kids first.
Yeah.
Simple fact, and they know I have, and they know I always will, and that has allowed a relationship where we have a fantastic relationship. And I think I talk about the balanced life, and I think really you've said that, which is because it isn't, that balance is not a perfectly imbalance. It's really what you just talked about. Your
Yeah.
definition of a balanced life sounds like it's being in those different modes at the right time.
Yeah, I have a very close relationship with my kids, and I will say I was lucky they came out as really good raw material, but there's no doubt that you have to do things. I mean, this is now my 17 and 50-year-old kids. My wife's a West Point grad. You talk about a role model for a young girl, like she's an amazing role model. And so I think we have done the right things. We've let them lean into the things they're passionate about. We've supported them. We've been parents first, friends second. We've had joyful times. We've definitely prioritized that. And by the way, I don't just live that for me. It's a part of the culture of our company. When I hire somebody, I try to give people an idea of what it's going to be like to work for me. And I say, here's the first thing you got to know about me. Get your priorities straight. If you're going to work for me, get them right. And what I say is by that is whatever your version of faith is, family, work, if you have a hard time ranking those three, you're going to have a hard time working for me because the order is pretty obvious. Now, you can debate the first two, but you can't debate that the first two are higher than the third one. And so now what I say is that does not mean that I'm saying miss the big moments at work either. There are times when you have to show up at work and you have to go deep and you have to work hard. Don't mistake that, but you have latitude. And so if I hear about you missing your daughter's recitals and your kids this or that all the time, it's like, come on, guys. Like that's something that you don't need to do. And it's not going to be rewarded by me. And I tell them, understand this too. That is for selfish and unselfish reasons. Unselfishly, I want people to lean into the right things, have a great life, be happy. I want to be surrounded by those happy people. Selfishly, I know you will be a better employee if you get your priorities straight. And so it's not just that I'm trying to be this good guy. It's like I want the best possible humans being happy so they can be productive and they can go kick butt at this really hard thing that we're building.
And so you've definitely got that worked out. And what does health mean to you?
For me, health is pretty simple. It's being able to do the things that I want to do. I certainly, in my younger days was defined by high athletic ability, high performance, and all that sort of thing. So that doesn't suddenly go away because you get a little older. I still can go climb mountains. I still mountain bike pretty hard. I still do one or two incredibly hard challenges every year. I want to be able to play with my kids. I want to be able to do fun things with my friends. I want great sex with my wife. There's a list of things that I sort of, from a health perspective, want to do. I want to be able to have a sharp mind. I want to be able to be intellectually curious. And so health to me means being able to do all of that. And by the way, over time that does evolve. Like I'm much more cognizant, for instance, at 56 about the things I do. I don't want to get injured. I probably would have taken more chances, been a little more extreme as a younger human, but now I'm just a little more cognizant of sort of like, hey, the risk reward there might be a little off. Maybe I'm not going to do that, but I'm not going to like taper it back where I'm not going pretty hard. And yet I have a lot of friends that are similar to me, and most of my friends tend to be a little younger than I am for a variety of reasons. I find that, I do have a high bar for what health is. I do optimize myself. I'm a big believer in optimization. I do all of the blood panels. I do all the diagnostics. I'm not like guessing at what I need to do to be healthy. I'm actually getting the data and figuring out exactly what I need to be healthy. And then I'm going after that. And, we were talking before we got on the podcast. I literally had stem cell injections in my shoulder this morning. My shoulder was bothering me. It's the last joint that I had not gotten injections in. So when my shoulder started to become a limiting factor, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go get that fixed because it's keeping me from doing a couple of things that I love doing, and that's not acceptable. And so that little bit of a long-winded answer, but being able to do the things you want to do is my definition of healthy.
Wow. And what do you like to do for fun?
I will say, having active, fun kids and a wife that once again is pretty adventurous. We're always doing stuff outdoors. I like to likes to mountain bike. I like to fish. I used to like to hunt. I don't like to shoot things as much anymore as I'm getting old. But just outdoorsy, active things are kind of our love language as a family. Like to travel some. We certainly have been all over the world. I let my kids pick each summer. They get to alternate. It's pretty amazing to see some of the places they've chosen, and we kind of lean into let's go see the world and learn. And we've got, by all accounts, a pretty lovely, active, adventurous life.
And I've actually got someone on my podcast coming up soon. He took a year off with his daughter. He is traveling the world.
Listen,
That's pretty fun.
I'm jealous. When I left Restore to do Humanaut, I didn't take any time off. Now, part of it is because the things I tend to work on around my businesses are things that I really care about and am passionate about. I mentioned I Go You Go travel company. Like I was a military kid, lived all over the world. Travel is sort of part of my DNA. So the things I'm doing, I really enjoy doing. I love the health optimization game. I wish I had taken some time off. And I will do something this coming summer with my son that'll involve multiple weeks. And when my daughter goes away to college, I'll do the same for her. And I hope that when they're adults, we can do really wonderful things. And I think wonderful things require time. Like to be able to take a year off and travel around the world with my daughter. My gosh, what a joy. I don't know if I have it in me, to be honest, but I aspire to something as great as that.
And what has been a pivotal moment in your life?
Well, I tell people all the time, I've had a pretty perfect life. I have a perfect life. Now, and I'm very quick to tell them, guys, that does not mean that everything goes perfectly. Like I said, I mentioned my dad died of cancer. I've had a couple of new ventures that didn't work out. I've had hard things, but for me, it's just been an aggregation of all the little things. Like, all of my failures, I feel like I've rolled into how do I do things better? Things like my dad's bankruptcy, I think actually made me hungrier. I'd be a different entrepreneur in terms of motivation if I'd had a lot of affluence growing up. Things like, meeting my wife when I was 36 and kind of at the point where it's like, gosh, now or never if I want to have kids. Like these things that are important to me, I think I've always been open to the thing I needed to be open to at the right time. And then the right thing has then happened. So a little bit of that you might call luck, but I kind of say being prepared for the luck to happen. And I've just had a series of those things. It's always worked out. And, like a pivotal moment business wise was like waking up and all the things that happened that I described earlier at the end of my restore time. If those things don't happen, I'm not doing Humanaut. I'd still be grinding, 2 years later in that business, which I think is a very different business, not nearly as the potential of Humanaut. But because those things happened, I did make the switch and I love that business, but that's behind me. I'm not defined by that. It's time to move on. And that's kind of the way I think about things. I've just had a lot of things and been open to them at the right time.
Being open to the universe.
Hey, the universe will give you what you want most of the time. You might not know it's what you want, but like the universe generally, I always say the universe favors the prepared, the universe favors the good, the universe favors the optimistic. All of these things matter. Doesn't mean the universe is going to give it to you exactly when you want it and exactly how you want it. But, whether you call it karma, whether you call it faith, I lean into my faith kind of like, yeah, if good things are happening, God wants them to happen right now. If bad things are happening, he wants those things to happen and it's okay. Like I'll deal with it.
And it's probably what you need rather than what you want.
That's right. I think people too many times they get a little bitter that they're not getting what they want, but they are getting what they need. And some of the worst things that happen in life are exactly what you need in order to unlock the bigger thing that you would not have been able to unlock otherwise. So,
Yeah, I'm a big believer that the negatives and the positives all mix together to make you who you are today. You wouldn't be who you are if you hadn't had failures, if you hadn't had things that weren't as successful, if you hadn't had the negatives as
yeah.
well, it all makes you who you are today, and therefore I'd argue a better person.
And I'd also offer that how you perceive things also matters. So one man's negative is another man's positive. So like some of my worst things people would look at as like, that's your worst thing. Like, there's a lot worse than that, believe me. And I'm like, I know, like there's a lot worse. So I think that optimism does matter. I think being able to look at things from a positive perspective does matter. Doesn't mean that they're good things, but how you process things is, I think, the single biggest thing for a human and for an entrepreneur to be quite um, um, straightforward. That is, to me, where resilience comes from. Resilience is the ultimate characteristic you need to be a good husband, good father, good entrepreneur.
What's one piece of advice you would give to an aspiring entrepreneur?
A lack of options provides clarity. There may be a lot of things you want to do, but understand sort of the environment you're operating in, understand what's possible and what's not possible. Don't fret about the things that aren't possible. Focus on the things that are. And when I say that, when you're first starting out, you're going to have less money. You're going to have to be a little scrappier. Focus on what you have available to you and let that lack of other options be a compass for leaning into the things that can actually make a difference at that point. Now, that's going to evolve over time. Those options that are available to you become bigger and different. So always the lack of options provides clarity. Focus on the things that you have in front of you that you can actually use and affect, and don't worry about the other things.
Well, thank you for sharing today and for joining us. And how can people find you?
Yeah, to find out about Humanaut Health, go to humanauthealth.com. Find me. LinkedIn's probably the easiest way. Go find Jim Donnelly on LinkedIn. I try to be very responsive. If I don't respond right away, I apologize. I get a lot of folks reaching out to me at this point in my career, but I try to respond to everybody.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Leo. I really appreciate it. This was fun.
It was. And thanks for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed the conversation, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, tell your friends, and leave a review.